Well, man, we are here today. I am super stoked. Man, you got to hit like, you got to hit subscribe. Don't forget to go inside the description. We got crazy links. Shawn's hooking you guys up. All of our sponsors are hooking up. This is Bold and Brash, and I am here with the infamous Shawn Finnegan. Shawn, man, what's up?
It's an honor. Honor.
Bro, you're on my podcast. I can't believe it.
We go way back. I still remember that day we met. It's like Peter Anthony, or even the name's cool. And then we sat down. It was like instantaneous connection.
Oh, man, I had a bro crush on you. Yeah. I was like, we just had gotten Remarkables.
Yeah, that's right.
And we were both carrying them around. And I'm like, do you love yours? And you're like, I love mine. Do you love yours? And I'm like, I love yours.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about it. And then I remember you had on an Audemars Piguet watch. And I was just like, dude, that thing is...
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I was like, that's so cool. And you're like, you're into watches? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I collect them.
Yeah.
And we became friends, and we realized, so today I wanted to talk, you have so many superpowers. I remember we were in Park City about 3 or 4 years ago, and you did one of your famous mastermind dinners where you just call up people, and you give them like 6 days notice and say, hey man, I got friends flying in from around the country. We're all having dinner. It's about $200. Do you want to come? I only have 14 spots. And you fill it up. And so I took a ride, and I met some really cool people who've become great friends. But I remember, I want to say it was maybe our friend Ryan from Arizona. And Ryan introduced you because he flew out. And he's like, man, I want to introduce my friend Shawn Finnegan, but I got to tell you something about Shawn. I would love to tell you what he does, but no one knows what he does. But everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
And then it was in that moment I thought to myself, that's the same way people introduce me. They don't really know what I do, but they always remember how I made them feel. You know, and if you make somebody feel great, they'll remember you forever. If you do something nice for them, maybe, if they buy your service or product, maybe they remember you, maybe they don't. But you make that impact. You make an impact on people, Shawn. Everybody loves to hang with you, wants to know you, and anybody who does know you feels like they're on the in, right? Like they're on the inner circle. And you probably have 10 circles, right?
Well, that was case in point. That was such a good, I love those dinners. And what I love more than anything, the biggest payday for a networker is this, what you said after, is you built relationships that continue on from there. And then eventually people, I think too many people to that point,
today we're going to talk a lot about networking. And here's the 3 things that you can do that will absolutely change your business immediately. The first thing you can do is you need to invite people and break bread with them. Would you agree with that?
100%. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the geniuses that when I watch you do that. So tell me, how do you get those dinners started?
Yeah. So I do an X Room event, and the way I started that, I was like, I
do you have on an Audemars again?
No, this one is he's low.
Oh, that's the Big Bang? Is that the new one?
No.
Oh, dude, you got some wrist candy.
The green and black.
Did you just get that?
No, I've had this one.
That's sweet.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh man, I love it. I didn't mean to.
No, it's good. It's good. So I was like, so in building that event, I was like, okay. I talk to people all the time. It's like, hey, word of mouth is so important. In fact, their whole business is based on word of mouth.
Right.
And then we ask them, hey, what's your strategy for word of mouth? And it's like, it's like an okay strategy, right?
If they even have one.
If they have one.
And they're trying to come up with a, because they don't want to be embarrassed.
That's right.
So they're like, oh, well, my strategy is shake a lot of hands, kiss a lot of babies. And I hand out my card and I tell people what I do. And it's like, that's your strategy?
Right.
You have a strategy, though.
Yeah, I think anyone I've talked to, I feel like they have a long ways to go. And if they do those things, they can explode your business. Right? You imagine if you're getting word of mouth, a few people to talk to a week. What if you tripled that or quadrupled that? And there's so much opportunity, right? So I was like with the X Room, you want a seat at the table. I was like, I want to build my own table in this one. I actually want to bring people together. And so I started with kind of avatar, like Peter Anthony. How do I get Peter Anthony and your marketing genius out of your office and into a room? That's where I start. What won't you do? Sundays are sacred for you. Saturdays are family. Evenings are family. I'm not going to take any of those times. I'm also not going to ask you for, money, that kind of stuff, convenience. So I was like, what are all the things you won't do? Also, I'm not going to get your time every week. I can't go to you and say, hey, every 3 days we're going to be doing a meetup. So it has to be FOMO. It has to be rare. And so I started all the things, what won't you do?
Well, that's an interesting point because, I never got to whiteboard that out with you, but, the best problem solvers start with, here's what we have. How do we build out? So I call it to my clients when I'm coaching them. I'm like, you've got to build a jungle that your lions want to play in. You've got to make sure. So how you build that jungle is you say that if the jungle's built, why won't you do this?
Mm-hmm.
Is that
yes.
accurate? So you're asking that question of yourself. Okay, when won't he come?
Yeah.
When, or he or she, or any pronoun you want to use.
Yeah, right.
But when won't they come, right? Why won't they come?
That's right.
What makes them feel overwhelmed?
Mm-hmm.
So is it time, energy, and money? You're always focusing through that. But you want to connect, like your connection, you have the only Rolodex or phone list, contact list that I think is definitely deeper than mine, if anybody I know.
Mm-hmm.
I know we overlap on some people, but yours is just ridiculous.
I love it. It's what you and I have been to many things together, and that's kind of what we do, right? But what gave me the idea of doing this X Room was I work with Kevin O'Leary. This a few years ago. He is the most efficient.
It's one of the things you do at Tax Hive.
Tax Hive, yeah.
That's one of your companies.
That's right.
Tax Hive. It's
Tax
in
Hive.
The links, man. We'll tell you more about it. But you got to get your taxes together.
We're going to hook you up on some stuff.
Yeah.
So years ago, he's like, this is like November, and I'm meeting with him, and I said, hey, Kevin, do you do any New Year's resolutions? And he's the kind of person that's so efficient with his time. He literally has a business phone, personal phone, and he is scheduled on the 10 minutes. I've never been around anyone.
Really?
I feel like a slacker around him. He's like, so I'm gonna tell my friends to call me to make me look busy or something around here because he is so regimented in his schedule. He doesn't have to be, but he believes in scaling relationships as well. So I said, do you do New Year's resolutions? And he said, yeah, I'm going to do one. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, I'm going to be 10% more efficient with my time next year. And if you saw his schedule, I've seen his schedule. I mean, it's an eyesore to look at.
Wow.
I mean, he just stacks. I'm like, in an hour into today, where's he going to get an hour? So I didn't see him again until February. He's like, hey, Kevin, how'd that go? Were you able to do it so far the first couple of months? And he said, yeah. And I said, how? And he said he was looking at his schedule really hard, and he found that there were some holes in the schedule, and the holes said lunch on it or dinner. So what he said was, well, I can make that time effective for me. And so what he does is if he goes to San Diego, his right hand, Nancy, will call up one of the biggest business owners in San Diego, say, hey, Kevin's coming in town. You want to go to dinner with him? And he's one of the biggest. Who's going to say no? I'll say yes. So he does his food and he does his bread,
right?
And then he brings in his camera team, and then they film content with one of the greatest minds in the city. And so he started filling up his schedule that hour for either a lunch or a dinner every day.
Genius.
Right?
So he winds up getting 15 or 18% more effective.
Yeah, that's right.
That's so right. And when you think about it, I think I read a book on that, like Never Eat Alone.
Yes.
Right? Isn't there a book?
There is a book called Never Eat Alone.
Right.
And it's true.
And the idea of that is, and I don't know how long I've been doing it. For lunch, when I had a company and I had hundreds of employees, every lunch I would grab one or two employees.
Mm-hmm.
And I would really just kind of hyper-focus on the employee. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how important it is to sit around and break bread with somebody.
Yeah.
Like they really like that.
Yeah. Yeah, even if you're a W-2, just grab someone in the office, get to know them and say, hey, let's grab lunch.
And you learn a lot about your business.
Yeah, you get someone's attention for 60 straight minutes. Yeah. I mean, pound for pound, I don't know if you can spend anything better. We're like the society right now, because like we're doing call after call after call, but you get to sit down with someone for 60 minutes. There's no distraction. You end up doing more business in that hour than you do all day.
And I think, so we started doing that a lot about when we moved to Utah, which kind of built my brand up here. And then we pulled back on it a little bit because my book got so full. And now we're going back to it. You know, you know Frank Kern, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I like Frank.
So, yeah, Frank's amazing, right?
Yeah.
So I'd known, we've been running the same circles for a little while, and I jumped into one of his masterminds. And I remember he asked me a question in front of the, like you're all sitting around, you're all high achievers, right? You're all making like a lot of money. I didn't make a lot of money, but I was doing all right, right? I was in the 7-figure club. And I'm sitting there and he's like, well, what do you want? And I said, dude, I really need to learn how to sell online. He's like, well, what do you want to sell? And I was like, oh man, I got to sell these $99 classes that I've got, and he said, well, how much are you making now? So I slide over the paper. He looks at the paper. He's like, damn. He's like, how much do you work? And I said, and I was like, well, to be honest with you, I do about 4 events a year. And he's like, well, clearly you're closing over $500,000 an event, right? And as he said, is that gross or net? And I said, well, I generally net about somewhere in there. He's like, so you're telling me every time you do an event, you make between $250,000 and $500,000? And I said, yeah, probably at least, And he's like, why are you selling crap online? Just do more events.
Right.
And I was like,
there's an epiphany.
What?
Right.
He said, if you did 8 events, you double your. He said, do you know how many $99 classes you have to sell to make $2 or $3 million?
Yeah.
He said, it's a lot.
Power of mentoring for him to just be able to step in and give that perspective.
And that's what I find at your X-Room dinners and everything I've ever done with you. When we sit down, you'll say, hey, PA, I'm doing some podcasts. I'm like, oh, you should do this with your podcast. You're like, can you write that down? And I'm like, oh, yeah, here's a PDF. I've already written it down.
I've implemented a lot more than you know.
I watched it.
That's really good.
I'm like, that's really smart.
Yeah.
So, but it's those little epiphanies when you're sitting around high achievers and you're going back and forth and just having general conversation. That's the truest mastermind.
Yeah, it is.
Versus the guru who's never probably really done it.
Yeah.
And then trying to extrapolate $10 or $15 or $20,000 and they're teaching from the front of the room. And I love teaching in front of the room. I love watching you teach. But I think that that next level of networking that you're an expert at.
Yeah.
So you meet somebody out. So the first thing you're saying is never eat alone.
Never eat alone.
Never eat alone.
It's what I always schedule first. So right now my lunches are filled for 3 weeks.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's because when Kevin told me
clearly not on that.
He needs to get on that schedule.
Megan, help me out.
Yeah, Megan, hook us up. But so like from Kevin, when he told me that, I was like, absolutely. I mean, Kevin is like much higher level and he's doing that. I'm going to do that. So I've been doing that for the last couple of years.
You took me to Mexican. That was, now I'm thinking once we met, the first thing you did was reach out to me.
Yeah.
And you said, hey, why don't we go to lunch? No, we didn't go to Mexican. We went to that cool pizza parlor with the brick oven pizza.
That's right. Yeah, it was Medici's.
Yeah,
that's right.
And it was, and I was like, this is pizza. Awesome.
Yeah, and you got the Italian thing.
Yeah, and you did some chicken on your pizza, and I was like, this is great, man. Right. And, but I thought it was really smart because I lived in Las Vegas. In New York, you're always eating with somebody.
Yeah.
Right? That's an Italian thing to do. So you're always breaking bread.
Yeah.
But here, I found it in Utah, I found it a little harder because everybody's weekends are more focused around our faith.
Sure.
And less focused around, and our family situation, where it's more nuclear here, where it's more extended in Brooklyn.
Yeah, sure.
So it's pretty interesting. So the first thing is never eat alone. But the second thing that you did, which I thought was genius, and I want you to go into it a little bit. I explain everything like people are dating. You get somebody's number, you want to date them, and it doesn't matter who's the masculine or feminine, but the masculine energy gets the feminine energy's number. And then the feminine energy has an expectation. And as you wait, the longer you wait, the further away they get.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a client this week at the show, we saw each other at the D2D.
Yeah.
And he said, man, I feel like I'm dating all these great people and we're going through it. And he's sharing with me his strategy is he wants to get them the best dress and make reservations at the best restaurant. I said, whoa, brother. I said, that's all cool stuff, but you're extending the experience before you have created the relationship.
Yeah.
What's your secret sauce to tying that in, to making someone feel like they know Shawn? Like, what's the timeline?
Yeah.
How do you integrate them in?
Yeah.
Because you make people feel like you're friends forever.
Yeah. So I think one thing I've noticed, a lot of people go to events, they go to networking kind of things. Very few people will actually get the information of someone in the room. Like you don't want to get everyone's info. There's some certain people that are not a fit for what you're doing in your business. But for the most part, people won't even reach out and say, hey, Peter, do you mind if I grab your number? That's number one. Number two is very few of them will actually leave with an appointment. Very few.
Oh,
so my go-to thing is I say this every time. Say, hey, do you mind if we set up at lunch now? I did this yesterday. I do it every day. I did it yesterday. And it was like this guy's just a perfect fit. And I said, do you mind if we just grab a time now? Because I know if I leave here, I might not be able to follow through, whatever. So do you mind if we do that?
Caught up. You get caught up in this current of your life.
How does your lunch work for Wednesday next week? And then I sent him an invite on the spot. Now it's not awkward because otherwise you get someone's number. Like I got Peter's number and then you got home and you're like, it's an awkward thing. Hey, Peter, I met you at the thing, and then you just so we just don't follow up. So the riches are made in the follow up, right? Oh, you 100%. Leave there with 3 or 4 good appointments.
It's a home run.
Home run.
And so I love recapping as we're speaking. So the first thing you want to do is you never want to eat alone. You want to really use your time to the highest level, highest advantage. But the second thing you do is when you meet somebody, you then use that time to its highest advantage. You don't wait, try to say, oh, we should get together. I'll call you when I get back. I know you're busy now. What you say is, awesome, let's exchange information.
Yeah.
And then let's immediately, would you mind if we just, how long are you going to be here? Or I'm in town. Let's schedule something.
Yeah.
I have found that when I'm at events, I do the same thing, but I always have. So if Megan or somebody on my team is booking us an event, I'm always like, okay, cool. We need reservations for 12 at this restaurant. And like, who's coming? I don't know, but I know I'm going to fill up that reservation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I think what the genius in what you're doing is now you don't have to go home and search through your cards.
Yeah.
It's already done.
Right. Done.
So what you can do is a little research on the person and really kind of deep dive into who they are and what's important to them when you're at lunch.
Right.
It's a huge time saver, but it's also genius because you now have solidified those relationships.
Yeah.
So 100%. Every event, 3 to 5, boom, done. I go to 2 events a week. I'm increasing and expanding my ecosystem and network by anywhere from 300 to 500 people a year.
That's right.
Holy cow. Yeah. And then if you extrapolate when you're at lunch, because I know you and I do this all the time. We'll get together. Like today, I've said, oh, you need to connect with that person. And it just reminds me. And then I do the texting, which will be the next thing we'll talk about.
Yeah.
I love that. So the first thing you do is make sure that you never eat alone. The second thing you do is when you meet somebody, you immediately book the appointment. Yeah. You don't let any grass grow under your toes.
The likelihood of you getting that person back on an appointment after goes down dramatically.
Oh, I would say, and that's why I equate it to dating. If I meet somebody that I liked before I was married, I would probably say, I know that there's studies, but there's, your opportunity goes down 50% if you wait 24 hours. I think it actually is 12 hours. Yeah. It goes down 50% when 12 hours. And then it goes down again. But if you wait a week, you're never getting a date.
That's right.
They moved on.
Yeah.
Even if they liked you.
You're right.
So even if that person that you meet out, because it's the same exchange of energy, even if they like you and they say, oh yeah, you're no longer top of mind, the person who paid the most attention to them is now top of mind.
Yep.
So you're now in the back of the line. I hate being in the back of the line.
Yes, amen.
I hate it.
Amen.
I hate
Yep.
it. So that's cool. So the first thing, book, find time in the lunches, in the spaces where you can connect. The second thing is take immediate action. Don't, as soon as you make that connection, make that appointment.
Yeah, I literally did that last night. I did it at Sam's event. Someone says, hey, I'm looking for a CPA. I heard you guys do that. And I said, absolutely. Let's step outside for 1 second. We was in the main room and we stepped out. Hey, love to be able to connect. How's your schedule? Literally walked away with an appointment. Yeah. I know that we'll do some significant revenue with that.
Right. So if you monetize, if you're looking at the value of each time we do that, right? So you look at the value, and let's say, depending on where you're at in your business, it could be anywhere from $500 to let's use $100,000, right? Because in our businesses, one deal is $100,000,
right? Yeah,
right. Well, if you're getting 2 deals a week, that's $10 million a year.
That's right. Yeah, right.
And you guys are complaining why you have no money.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah,
you have no money because you're not putting enough deals together, and your deal flow is not where you want it to be, and it's probably based on your lack of strategy and your networking game.
Yeah, they're just they go to events and they think things are going to happen, and they do now and then. Someone reaches back out, but you got to make your own luck in that one.
Yeah, I agree, and people are like, how do you do so well at events? I used to think that I wanted to be this, and I think I've spoken at maybe, 1,500, 2,000 events over the last 40 years. And there was a while where I was doing, maybe 300 a year, like just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
3 or 4 in a day, speaking events. And I thought, oh man, that's the best place. Then when I realized, like, if I just back off a little, walk around the room, shake some hands, kiss some babies, and then really look into, oh, wow, that's really cool. So the strategy I use is I'm always curious about people.
Yeah.
I find that you're always curious as well. I'm always interested. Like, what are you doing? What's cool? Right. Like, oh, I really like that. And then I'm looking at their interests and, it's like, oh, man, I like that jacket. I really dig your style. I'm liking those Nikes, right? Like, you put together the style and then all of a sudden you've built rapport. And then I use that rapport to build the relationship and to get them to a lunch.
Yeah.
What's another strategy?
I remember this article I read years ago on Forbes, and they wanted to find out what made people popular at parties. And so they did this study. They went around to the party and they just observed, and then they asked people on a survey, hey, who was the most interesting person? Who was the most popular person? And it boiled down to 2 people. And so Forbes went up to the 2 people and said, hey, you were one of the most popular people at the party. What did you do that made you so popular at the party? And the answers were both the same, which I just asked people about themselves, right? Which is the Covey, right? First seek to understand and then to be understood, right?
Or President Nelson, love, share, and then invite.
That's right.
You gotta love people first.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Get a little faith in there, but ultimately you want, I think that is the key, right?
Yeah.
It's the key because you got to see the person first. And it's, with Simon Sinek, is always, start with why in that Puget Sound TED talk that, probably has been seen 2 billion times at this point. And every entrepreneur knows it.
Oh, yeah.
But we've always started with the facts and figures. And I see a lot of people when they're out and about, especially like we were at D2D last week, Sam's event. And you're in an environment where everybody wants to tell you what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they never want to tell you why they're moved by what you do. Like what you do, honestly, when I look and I'm like, oh man, that Shawn's a stud. You're ridiculously wealthy. And that's super cool. But that's not what makes you a stud. What makes you a stud is I watch you and you're genuinely interested in connecting people.
Yeah.
Like you have a genuine interest in that. And I'm like, well, I share that interest too. And I think that what makes you really special and what makes anybody special is how much they do for others, right? Mm-hmm. And I always get a little focused on faith. But, what are the two biggest Christian commandments out of, right? Mm-hmm. Well, God says, love me first.
Yeah.
Put no other above me.
Right.
And then love your neighbor as you love yourself.
That's right.
Which drives to the fact that you got to be interested in somebody to love them.
Yeah, I agree. I also think it's so important how you show up at these things. Brandon Bouchard says when you go through that door into any big event, you're going through a portal, and you're transforming into the one that's going to play all out, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, I went to an event a couple months ago because I just stood by the door. I wanted to see how people show up because there's an awkwardness to this. Like, some people, if you say, hey, you're going to go with all complete strangers into a room, that's like, it's the last thing I want to do, right?
Well, you're on stage.
Yeah.
We would train our stylists in our salons that every time you step into the salon, you're stepping on stage and you're now a character.
Yeah.
Leave yourself at the door.
That's right.
Don't let yourself in.
Yeah.
And jump into the role of this of the winning character.
Yeah, I love that.
But what I think what you just said, which is say it again so that everybody can hear you, because it was so important.
Yeah. So I just it's just you got to show up, So your time's valuable, and you're now spending time. You're parking and you're going to an event. What's your intention before you get there?
So set an intention.
Set a strong intention, and when you walk through those doors, that portal into that room, what do you want to accomplish?
And I think, what do you think? I share, like for me, I want to be the reflection of what people are looking for. I want to be the best reflection of what's gonna serve them. Mm-hmm. And I think that you have to set that intention. Because without intention, you're aimless. Mm-hmm. Or and then would you say, how do you qualify the intention? Because you were very qualified. Mm-hmm. The first thing you told us was like, hey man, you've got to say, what won't they do? Why won't they come? What's the easiest way to get them there? Yeah. So how do you set the qualifications for that intention?
Yeah, so I went to this event a few weeks ago. I wanted to see how people show up. Just the average person walks in the door. And what I found is they have their phone right here. 90%, I counted, came in like this. Because this is a safety blanket, and they had their head down. And I mean, do you want to talk to me right now where I feel like I'm busy, I'm looking at the screen?
And when I look at people like that, I'm like, oh man, all they're doing is trying to show the whole room how busy they are.
Right. And so what I found is they came in looking at their phone, and then they went to the corners of the room, and they didn't engage.
Right.
And so what I try to do is the old Robbins where your physiology reflects your inner, right?
Oh man, you got to be in state.
So you go in that peak state of mind, and what I've been doing recently is I walk straight to the middle of the room, up closer to the front, and I go, you're the promoter, I go up and meet you, and I shake your hand with energy, and it's like some people, like, as you know, they'll kind of sit on this side. I always check where my stance is. I want to be in that power position, and I want to have power in that room, and I want to go right up to the promoter, get to know the promoter. Because if I could get you to introduce me to some of the best people in the room, it's 1,000% more effective than me just going to try to do it, right?
Oh, I mean, it's just, you want, so this is your last, so the 3 points. 1 is book the lunches. 2 is get the appointment before you leave for the lunch. Mm-hmm. And 3 is get the most powerful people to introduce you to their tribe.
Right.
Oh, that's gangster.
Right.
That's the most gangster one out of all of them. If you could just learn how to master that skill set of getting others to introduce you because now here's the interesting part, because you walked into the center of the room with energy, purpose, and intention, they're going to introduce you because, I have a 40-year Tony Robbins background. You're going to match and mirror someone's energy. Yeah. So when you jump into that energy, they're going to jump into that energy.
People think you're the promoter because you're up there and standing in that power. You're talking to the other promoter. Yeah. You instantly create an attraction to either. 2 years ago, I went to the Super Bowl with Dave Meltzer. Mm-hmm. And he rents an Airbnb, and all day, for 3 days before, he has people coming to him every hour. And so I spent a day with him at that Airbnb, and he would just walk me over and say, hey, you got to meet someone. Just like when we came in here and he showed me the pictures. If I get an intro from you to one of those friends, I'm 1,000% farther ahead than me trying to go in cold and hitting them out of the blue. Like I got an intro to John Pastano from Dan Young last night.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to do a photo shoot in his place. And I was like, hey, would you mind doing an intro? And he does an intro with me together with him last night. Mm-hmm. Dan Young introduced me. And so now I'm farther ahead than me trying to come in cold.
You're leveraging credibility constantly.
Yeah.
And, it's an interesting thing. People are, we have a friend in common who was on the podcast, Jeff Flam. You should check that podcast out. And Jeff said, Peter, I don't understand. He's like, I've been CEO of the year. I own one of the biggest companies. I literally donate to everything.
Yeah,
right?
You're right.
And how do you know more people in Utah in 3 or 4 years than I do?
Yeah, right.
And it's because I said, I remember when I first moved here, I said, Jeff, man, I really like this our AG, Sean Reyes. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm like, man, he is he is smart. He's on point. He's just a great human being. Yeah. And Jeff knows him, right? Yeah, and Jeff's a donor, right? And I was like, could you give me give me an introduction? And he never gave me an introduction. And I said to him, I said, I'm going to be friends with Sean. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be friends with him. And my wife always laughs at me. She's like, how are you going to meet that attorney general of a state? Who's like the president of all the other attorney generals.
Right.
And I was like, man, I'm going to, and literally I put the intention out, which is the intention. Right. I built up my energy. Yeah. We're in the same room. Mm-hmm. Everybody surrounds him. I step back. I asked him, I said, I said, you're attacking those peanuts. Mm-hmm. Can I get you something to drink and eat?
Yeah.
And he's like, and I said, yeah, just stay right there. And I brought him something to drink. I brought him something to eat. And he's like, man, thank you so much. Mm-hmm. I said, I know, it's hard to get a word in edgewise when everybody wants to talk to you. He's like, it is. All of a sudden, everybody's like watching he and I have a 1 hour conversation. Yeah. Nonstop, just curious about each other. And now I don't know that, I think he'd say I'm a friend, but we're friendly. Yeah. We've broken bread and I just adore him. To your point, if you put intention in front of everything, you crush.
100%.
So you're working on, I know that you've got a bunch of businesses. Yeah. You've got X-Room, which is killer. Yeah. So that's the invitation.
Keeps building momentum.
Yeah, that is the invitation to have in Utah. Mm-hmm. I'm not on that list.
Yes, you are.
I don't know why.
You are for sure on that list.
I stopped getting invitations.
You got busy.
But you've got X-Room, which is killing it. Yeah. And then you do a couple of things that you help entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. You and Kevin O'Leary and a few other partners started a company called Tax Hive. Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, tell us a little about Tax Hive.
Yeah, so quickly, so most business owners don't spend a minute on tax. So if I ask business owners, hey, tell me about what your top expenses, it's usually people costs, it's product costs, it's all this stuff, but it's never tax. But it ends up being one of their top expenses.
I know. Last year, I think, I'm not used to paying state tax. Uh-huh. And we always extends, right? So I'm like, and what I realized is in Utah, there's no way out of state tax. Mm. So I had a $58,000 Utah state tax bill. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh my goodness. I was like, holy cow, I gotta break up the payments. Yeah. Man, I was like, because in Nevada, no state tax.
Yeah, I have a good friend who didn't make money as a construction company, didn't make money. Well, 2 years ago, he made a lot of money. Yeah. But he had zero deductions lined up. Yeah. And so he ends up getting hit with a $400,000 bill that he wasn't expecting because he's like, I hadn't made money, but now it's like, and he has like his accountant's like, well, where's all you have any deductions? He had literally 2 or 3 deductions.
Yeah, your accountants always tell you at the end of the year, do you have any deductions? Yeah. Well, dude, you're my accountant.
Right, exactly.
Like what I love about Tax Hive is they're not accountants, they're strategists.
That's right. Yeah.
At all of our networking events, all of our marketing events, everybody I coach, I say, the first person you need to put on your team is a killer lawyer.
That's right.
You need an attorney writing all your contracts.
Lawyer.
Your second person has to be a tax strategist. Before you hire anybody, you need an attorney and a tax strategist, and then you go for the champions and the mentors and the people who are going to help you grow.
Yeah, most people are upset with their accountant like this. They feel like their accountant's not getting them enough deductions. Well, they're paying the accountant for the wrong job. They're paying for the accountant for the equivalent of going into a store and they just check out your stuff. They're just a checkout counter. That's it. So that's what they're paying them for. They're not paying them for strategists.
No,
they're not actually paying for the personal shopper in the store.
Right, but but at Tax Hive, it seems to me like they're almost. I don't want to say they're, that they're CFO, but it's almost that strategy that that a high level CFO would put into a company where they're asking you, okay, cool. What are your intentions? What are your intentions this year with your company? Let's look at that. And then let's determine where we can save. And then let's go backwards too. And let's say, hey man, did you know that you qualify for this? Oh, Peter Anthony, you always talk about being Italian, but you're Latin. Welcome to Utah. There's a Latin tax deduction. Right?
To me, it's like the blue and red pill. It's like when I'm in the tax world now, and I've taken that pill and I see how the wealthy are actually operating. Like Kevin meets with his strategist on a regular, all year round. And you always hear about these wealthy people that don't pay a lot in taxes on transactions, everything. They're brilliant about it. All the other small business owners, we're just kind of on the side. We just get hammered and we think it's up there with death, so we pay it, right? And then if you're W-2, you can take up to 10 deductions, but when you become a business owner, you could take up to 1,400. But no one sits you down and says, hey, there's a whole treasure chest of deductions there that you should take advantage of.
And that's because most of your accountants don't know it. They know the 10 because they're really retail, and what we really need is strategy.
That's right. You need strategy. So I'll give you a quick example of one that you can take that everyone can take right now. Right? Okay, so the home deduction is important. You could also pay your children $16,200 a year. Each child.
Yep.
And which I freaking love.
I love it.
Because it's a legacy.
It saves me a lot of money.
Yeah, plus you can also include your children in your entrepreneur journey. Right? You can sit them down as a board meeting with your family and say, hey, children, this is what I'm doing this year, and we're going to do this together. What responsibilities do you want to take part in? And
if you can imagine, if you do that 2 years in a row, you put away $32,000 for them. If you leave that in a tax shelter, like something simple, like an IRA or like a Roth or something, by the time they're 45 years old, they've got nothing but bank.
That's right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's a great one.
Yeah, so then also a lot of people are just LLCs, so they have to pay self-employment tax of 15%. So if they set up an S-Corp, become an employee in their company, they can save themselves 15% of their revenue a year back in their pocket. So, and I'll give you one last one. So at one point in my life, I lived in Augusta, Georgia. So I served a mission there.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, knocked doors. We're talking about the white shirt ties. Yeah. So at the time, I loved golf. And this isn't recommended on a mission, so don't listen to this part. I was so in love with that course because it is like, it's God's ground, right?
Oh, it's beautiful.
And it's beautiful. So we're driving past it one night and I get out of my car and I sneak out on the course and I'm surprised I didn't get tased. But I wanted to see the grass. And if you stand in that spot, it is literally like velvet. I don't even see a divot.
No. The groundskeepers there.
It's insane. So
they probably make $500,000.
Oh, I bet you they do. I mean, the checkered. So it's the most incredible place. But if you stand there and you look around, there's zero shiny tall buildings. They don't want anything to obstruct the views of this incredible course. So all you see is neighborhoods as far as the eye can see. So Augusta National is every year. It's 2 weeks a year. 250,000 people descend on Augusta National for the tournament every year. So if you're an Augustan Georgian, you want nothing to do with that tournament. You want to go. You go to the Caribbean. You're going out your bass
house
boat
for $50,000.
That's right. So you rent out your house, and it's not the Airbnb level; it's the Marriott ballroom level. And so for years, these Augustan Georgians were bringing in 30 to 50 grand, let's say, in revenue. Well, they got tired of paying taxes. So if it's 30 grand, they had to pay $10,000 in tax. So they got a lobbyist, went in front of Congress and said, hey, we don't want to pay a tax for two weeks a year for our own house. And so it became federal, which means every business owner can now take advantage of Rule 280A, which is the Augusta rule, right? So you've all heard the nickname Augusta rule. That's where it all comes from.
Oh, right on.
So 280A, you can rent your house out to your business for 14 days a year and don't pay tax on it.
To your own business.
To your own business.
Right.
So it's a simple thing to just say, hey, monthly, I'm going to do a boardroom, board meeting, and then 2 other events during the year. So take advantage of the 14 days.
Yeah.
Document it, and now you don't pay tax.
You can do a mastermind in your own home.
That's right. That's right.
Invite all your friends, kick your kids out.
Yeah.
Right. They're going away to the grandparents, and you're gonna just pay yourself.
Yeah.
All that money. So it's huge. So how do they get in touch with Tax Hive?
So anyone watching this, there
will be a description in the link.
Yeah, and so we created a blueprint. It's free for everyone. You can go check it out. It's 17 questions and ask you questions about your business and what you do, and then it will email you a report that will show you ways that you can save actually right now up to $10,000.
Right. And then just you can probably get on the phone with somebody.
Yes, and then you can book a call with us. And our call sounds a lot like just asking you questions about your business. And if we can help you, we've been able to save our clients anywhere from $10,000 to hundreds of thousands in tax.
Wow.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to save money on taxes. It's my least favorite thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Painful.
It's painful.
Yeah, dude.
It's painful.
Yeah.
It's painful. So
when I first met you, you were talking about tax.
You
just barely got stung with another bill.
It's just I turn around and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's just but I complain, I whine. I think I'm grateful to pay anything into the community of Utah.
Yeah.
We love it here. We feel very blessed. We feel very grateful.
Yeah.
Shawn, man,
honor.
thank you, brother.
Thank you so much.
I mean, I'm gonna ask you if you will come on again.
100%.
Because there's so much we have to cover. I hope we covered a lot of networking for you guys. Go out there. That is your fastest path to
you will
cash,
make
guys.
more money.
It's your fastest path.
Yes.
Love it, subscribe it, like it, share it. And if you have a negative comment, please make it a big one. I'm ready. We love you. Have a great day, guys.